Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly for pricing. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we are discussing a follow-up to the celebrated Zenith A3818 Cover Girl revival. This is the Zenith and Revolution A3818 Cover Girl revival Airweight, a 250-piece limited edition in titanium grade 5 rather than the original stainless steel. This is a recreation of the same 1971 vintage El Primero reference, but it wears entirely different. So this is a 250-piece limited edition, and you can see on my wrist, 16 centimeters in circumference. It wears quite easily. It is feather light on this titanium ladder style bracelet. It is super low. It's only 13 millimeters thick, but it tends to wear lower in practice. It is also remarkably constrained across the wrist, as the lug-to-lug dimension is 46.9 millimeters with a 19 millimeter spacing between the lugs. I can recommend it for him or for her on a wrist as small as 13 centimeters circumference. Taking a quick look at the watch, you can see that it has a wonderful recreation of the original 1970s bracelet, albeit with a more reassuring structural integrity about it. The way it feels like a modern version of a vintage bracelet rather than a worn and weathered genuine article, and that's all to your advantage as the customer. Now, it is a lovely throwback to the old Gay Frere bracelet that would have been used, but you can see modern assembly with removable links fixed in place by screws, and you'll appreciate that even the center links here are solid. We have a combination of satin and polish. All this is grade 5 tie, which is lighter than steel, but also more scratch tolerant than steel. We have a clasp that is, well, quite authentic on the outside. It definitely looks the part of the early 70s. And then we have several drillings through the flank of the clasp that allow you to use your strap tool to re-anchor the spring bar and thus the clasp and the bracelet relative to each other. You can move this in or out with your strap tool. Taking a quick look at the case, it is a tonneau profile. And you can see it's a monoblock, as we would have had historically. That is to say that everything loads through the back. The back comes off, but the bezel and the case are actually all one piece. Now, the case is polished. There's a transitional bevel that runs all the way around the edge, and then the lug hoods as well as the case top feature that 1970s lapping machine radial satin grain. We have vintage-inspired pump-style pushers and a Zenith star logo on the crown. The crystal is sapphire, though it does look plexiglass. It is a highly cambered and domed sapphire that's designed to distort like plexiglass but be scratch-resistant like sapphire. We have a bright blue metallic dial that is reminiscent of the one on Manfred Roeselle's seminal Zenith volume. He wrote the history of Zenith watches, and thus this model, which was on the cover, became known as the Cover Girl. So the 3818 became known as the Cover Girl model. Now, there was a first Cover Girl re-edition. It came out in 2020. And that was a smaller series of 100 watches. This one is 250, but it offers what that first one could not, which is titanium. Now, the dial has a number of elements that are very vintage evocative, from the vertical blue metallic satin graining to the color patterns on the scales of the sub-registers. You can actually see that the sub-registers are somewhat raised above the dial. The most distinctive feature of this dial is the sawtooth track outboard for reading seconds and fractions of seconds. It had a practical purpose, as the idea was to make it easier to read the potential 1/10 of a second accuracy of the El Primero movement. We have a red varnished seconds hand at center, but the most impressive thing about this model and this variant is that it is entirely loomed, the entire thing, right down to the hybrid tachymeter pulsation scale. And it does have a hybrid tachymeter pulsation scale. Get a little bit closer there, and you can see it has a scale they can use to estimate the pulse rate of a patient, but we also have a tachymeter so you can gauge the speed of an object, such as a car, over a kilometer. Now, the watch does not feature hacking seconds, because that's not a thing with traditional El Primeros, but it does feature a quick set for the date. Flip it all upside down, and you can see the traditional El Primero, caliber 400, automatic winding with bidirectional action. Let me try to get a little bit closer without corrupting the focus. There we go. So bidirectional winding with a 50-hour power reserve, 36,000 vibrations per hour, protected down to 50 meters. It's a 31 joule movement with a column wheel lateral clutch operation. You can actually see the column wheel in action. It makes for an exceptionally crisp pusher feel, very satisfying. It sounds great too. It is a lateral clutch, and the nice thing about this lateral clutch is that, I'll do my best again to bring this into view, but you can see it. A lot of vertical clutch chronos are more efficient, but you can't actually see the clutch in action. The nice thing about a lateral clutch is that it bears all. Let's get this focus back. The watch is in exceptional condition, and being a recent addition, it's scarcely been worn. Everything about this watch is appealing. The style, the history, the way it feels on the wrist, and the fact that you get all of that vintage flair with modern fit, finish, and assembly quality. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.